For 54 years, the moon has been a silent moment to a bygone era. We have treated it like a museum, a place where we left some expensive cameras, a few golf balls, and a fading nylon flag. We looked at it, we marveled at it, and then we collectively looked away. But this week, the silence didn't just break, it shattered. On Tuesday, March 24, 2026, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman stood at the podium and didn't just announce a mission. He announced a real estate takeover. Gone is the getaway. The multi-billion-dollar orbital space station that critics call a bridge to nowhere. In its place, a $20 billion high-velocity pivot that bypasses the orbital pleasantries and goes straight for the jugular. A permanent, nuclear-powered fortress at the lunar South Pole. Washington is done with exploration. They are moving into the era of occupation, with the Artemis II crew sitting on the pad at Kennedy Space Center, waiting for their April 1st launch. The message to the world is clear. The United States is no longer interested in visiting the moon. They are moving in, and they have brought the moving trucks. For half a century, we treated the moon like a distant memory. Today, NASA treated it like a strategic necessity. The $20 billion ignition plan is the final admission that the second space race is not about peace for all mankind. It's about logistics, power, and presence. Washington has looked at the map of the lunar South Pole and realized that the first came, first served rule of history hasn't changed just because we are in a vacuum. As the Artemis II crew prepares for their historic flight next week, they aren't just pilots. They are advanced guard. They are the surveyors of a new American territory. The getaway is dead. Long live the moon base. The blueprints are signed. The checks are being cut. And the engines are idling on the pad. The moon is no longer a destination. It's the front line. And as the sun rises over the Kennedy Space Center this morning, one thing is certain. The race for the moon did not end in 1969. It just entered the final round.
To understand why NASA is suddenly acting like a Silicon Valley disruptor and a move fast and break things spirit, you have to look at the spectacular decay of the Saint route. For nearly a decade, the Artemis program was anchored to the lunar gateway. The architecture was elegant, international, and let's be honest, excruciatingly bureaucratic. It was a plan to build a mini international space station that would perpetually circle the moon in a near rectilinear halo orbit. The theory was simple. Astronauts would fly to the station, dock their Orion capsule, wait for a separate lander to arrive, and then descend to the surface. It was a strategy designed for a world where America had no real competitors. A world where space was a laboratory, not a battlefield. It was a leisurely stroll through the cosmos that prioritized safety and international consensus over speed and surface presence. But then, the geopolitical winds shifted. While NASA was busy debating the specific bolt patterns and docking adapters of the gateway modules, Beijing was building a lunar infrastructure with the cold, quiet precision of a master architect. China's International Lunar Research Station, or ILRS, isn't just a vision, it is a relentless step-by-step roadmap. They've already scouted the South Pole with the Change series of rovers machines that do not just explore for the sake of science, but prospect. They are looking for the white gold of the 21st century, subsurface water ice. If you control the water ice trapped in the permanently shallow regions of the Shackleton Crater, you do not just control the moon, you control the future of deep space travel. Water is life. Yes, water is oxygen for breathing, certainly. But most critically, water is the raw material for liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen rocket fuel. The South Pole isn't just a scientific curiosity, it is the strategic fueling station for the solar system. Jared Isaacman, a billionaire who built an empire on high-speed payment processing and who personally commanded the first all-civilian orbital mission, saw the writing on the wall. He looked at the 2026 budget and realized that if NASA spent the next 5 years building an orbital toll booth in the sky, they would be watching through high-powered telescopes as the Chinese flag was planted over the most resource-rich valleys on the surface. So, he did the unthinkable. He killed the gateway detour. The $20 billion ignition plan is a radical scorched earth repurposing of American aerospace assets. Instead of assembling a station in the air, NASA is taking the HALO, or Habitation and Logistics Outposts, and the PPE, or power and propulsion element, hardware originally meant to orbit, and ruggedizing them to be dropped directly onto the lunar regolith. They are effectively turning a space station into a modular ground base. To power this lunar colony, NASA is fast-tracking Fission Surface Power, or FSP systems. These are compact 6,000 kilogram nuclear reactors designed to provide 40 kilowatts of continuous power for at least a decade. Why nuclear? Because at the South Pole, the peaks of eternal light are rare. The lunar night lasts 14 Earth days, and in the freezing shadows of the craters, solar panels are useless. On the Moon, if your batteries die during the long night, you don't just lose data, your habitats freeze, your electronics crack, and your mission ends. Nuclear is the only way to stay always on. Furthermore, NASA is tearing up the old slow-cost plus contracts that haunted the space shuttle era. They are learning entirely on the commercial lunar payload services and the heavy lift titans, SpaceX's Starship and Blue Origin's Blue Moon. These are not tiny Apollo capsules. Starship is a 160-foot tall skyscraper that can land 100 tons of cargo on the surface in a single trip. That is more mass than 10 Apollo missions combined. The new timeline is a fever dream of engineering ambition. Now there are 3 phases. On phase 1, which is the robotic wave, starting late 2026, a conveyor belt of commercial landers will drop robotic scouts, autonomous bulldozers for leveling landing pads, and the first communication relays. Phase 2, or the power grid, in 2027, the first nuclear fission reactors will be deployed remotely, creating a power oasis before any humans arrive. And on the last phase 3, the human arrival, by 2028, Artemis 4 will skip the orbital docking maneuvers and go straight to the surface, landing the first crew at the foundation base. It is a high-risk, high-reward, burn-the-boats strategy. By abandoning the gateway, NASA has no safe harbor in orbit. There is no orbital lifeboat waiting if a habitat develops a leak or a rover's life support fails. But in the corridors of the new NASA, the mantra has changed. You don't win a land grab by hovering in the air, you win it by digging in.
Facts inform, but stories transform.